Well, welcome to whenever you are and wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Cigar Box Guitar Builder podcast. It's Adam Harrison here from Brayden Guitars. Just a little reminder, if you want to have a look at what I've been up to, you can do so at the Cigar Box Guitar Builder YouTube channel. Of course, in the Facebook group of the same name, and of course at birdwoodguitars.com. Today, I'm going to be speaking with Brayden Finchum, otherwise known as Brayden 66 Salvage. Brayden's a good friend of Alex Lechner, who we spoke to at the end of last year. And I'm really looking forward to having a chat with him. He does some fantastic builds. And so with no further ado, let's get on with things. Also, don't forget, if you do need to get any of your awesome guitar parts, don't forget to use C.B.Gitty. We have an affiliate link in the information section of our podcast, and you can use that affiliate link to get 10% off any of the items you need to buy from C.B.Gitty.com. And big thanks to them for sponsoring the podcast and the YouTube channel. Anyway, with no further ado, let's have a chat with Brayden 66 Salvage. All right, we are here with Brayden Finchum from Brayden 66 Salvage. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm hanging in there.
That is awesome. The weather over there in America it's January, January, I should know, it's January 26th here in Aussie. The weather over there is nuts. What the hell's going on?
I think somebody pissed off Elsa. I don't know other than that, I guess.
Crazy. I've been trying to talk to Steve Harvey back and forwards just over the last couple of days, and where's he? He's just done a festival down in I'm going to say Louisiana, but I think I'm wrong. Where was it?
Yeah, it was New Orleans.
New Orleans, yeah, and he's snowed in. I didn't even know they got snow there. Yeah,
it's rare to happen. I don't think it's happened, I think, in like 40 or 50 years. Me and my wife were just talking about that. It even snowed in Florida. And it hadn't snowed in Florida since like the late 70s.
What the hell? That's like snowing on the Gold Coast in Queensland. I mean...
Yeah, it's been very cold. Negatives, and I've been battling bronchitis, so this is like my first time waking up today and seeing if I had a voice.
Yeah.
Just to be a little bit somewhat normal, I guess. So
yeah, well, bronchitis is nothing that's it's no pun intended, but it's nothing to sneeze at. It's especially if you're working, if you're working with your hands or you're working with dust and things like that, because I know I'm susceptible to lung issues and things like that, with asthma and all that sort of stuff. But it's a reminder, to, especially if you're in your wood shop, to make sure you got a nice amount of air around you and proper breathing apparatus for the right timbers and stuff like that. So with yourself, well, let's delve back into Brayden Finchum and find out where. Let's go back in the, what do they call it, the Wayback Mobile, and how did we come up? How did we start with Brayden 66 Salvage? Where does the name that name come from, anyway?
Well, actually, for guitars, it's American Heritage Guitars.
Yeah.
But the 66 Salvage part was my automotive business was called 66 Salvage Restoration Speed Shop. So Facebook wouldn't allow me to create a profile for my automotive business. So the only way for me to have a part of that was saying my name and then putting 66 Salvage on the end of it, just to make it a lot easier.
Oh, of course, yeah, because you wanted it to be a profile and not a page as such.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Its profiles are a little, the reason I did a profile versus like a business page, quote unquote, is because really, I used to get pretty personal with a lot of my customers.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, well, if we want to talk privately instead of, you know, talking amongst other people, well, you know, this is my page. This is how you can, you know, get a hold of me and contact me. Besides, my Instagram used to be that too. It just made it a lot easier to connect with people.
Yeah. Are you still doing the cars? Are you still doing the restorations and things with the cars?
No. Really, the last year and a half has kind of been, you know, challenging with the economy. And people have found out that restoring old classic cars, it's very pricey. If you want someone to rebuild it for you, it costs you a pretty penny in order to have your car, you know, taken care of.
Yeah.
So a lot of people I've told people, these are the prices, this is what it's going to cost you. And people are like, oh, well, I didn't realize, I thought it'd be less money. It's like, no, you're paying me for my love of taking care of your vehicle. So, you know,
I get it.
You got to pay the bills some way, somehow.
Well, I mean, I've got a Mazda. I've got a 15-year-old Mazda 3 sitting out on the front lawn at the moment, unregistered, simply because we can't afford to take it to the shop to, you know, at the time of registration, we couldn't afford to take it up and get it worked on, you know, because it didn't need a lot. So even that's not even a heritage car or anything like that. That was just something to drive around in. And it does come down to that thought that when you're paying for something like a restoration, you're not just paying for the parts and the labour, you're also paying for the history and the expertise that goes into it. And I think a lot of people forget that with the economy. You know, talking to everybody, you know, over the last, you know, talking to Alex, talking to Steve, talking to Cindy, talking to, gee whiz, every single person I've spoken to has just been, you know, has been hit hard post-COVID by everything going up. And if you think about it, it's the world going crazy, really, because think about how much you were just paying for your groceries 4 years ago and how much more you're paying now. It's just, so what I'm getting at is, what we're doing, you know, with you and with the cars and with guitars now, these are luxury items. Like it beggars belief that a disused cigar box and some timber that you find, or, you know, even if you get it from a big box shop or whatever, it's now become a luxury, isn't it? You know, when you think about it.
Yeah, it's you know, here in the States, you know, wood, because I'm not one of those things where, like, I will use any wood. Because you're gonna have problems down the road. I come from, like, a musical background my whole entire life.
Yeah.
It was music, cars, and motorcycles. My whole entire life has kind of been that whole entire thing. And, so I came from playing 6 strings, banjos, pianos my whole entire life. And I learned about, you know, cigar box guitars, or folk art instruments, as some people would say.
Yeah.
I learned about that from my grandparents and my great-grandparents. I learned about that history. And just about 2 years ago, I had an automotive accident where I broke my right hand.
Yeah.
And I was watching something on TV. I was watching something about Stevie Ray Vaughan, and for some reason or another, you know, I left the TV because I'm watching YouTube. That's what I was watching it on.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Del Puckett just, it was the first thing that popped up. And so here's Del Puckett just talking about these guitars and building his. And so I decided to bring the business name back, American Heritage Guitars. And, like, well, you know, let's get back into guitars. You know, let's, you know, just take a break from the automotive for a little bit. We've been doing it so long. And during that time I was laid up, I mean, my hand was, well, you can see for yourself, my pinkies. I was just really bummed out. You know, I had my hand wrapped up. I had claw hands with 3 fingers like this.
Yeah.
And I was just bummed. I couldn't go down to the shop and work. I couldn't even pick up a guitar. I couldn't do nothing.
Yeah.
And so I was watching Del Puckett, and it kind of was an epiphany of, well, instead of wanting to just get back in and focus on regular 6-string guitars or bass guitars, why not focus on the folk art instrument aspect? Because to me, they're not popular. You know, you could build a Tele all day long. You could build a Strat all day long. You could build this guitar, that guitar, every which way till the cow come home. But these guitars are different. They challenge you to build different every single time. You know, you get a different idea for each one. There's rarely an occasion where I've built one and they're identical or sound identical.
Yeah. Oh, that's absolutely right. How many times have I built it? Like in Australia here, we probably one of the most popular kind of boxes, popular if you can use that term, boxes that we have are the old Romeo and Juliet, and I've used hundreds of them over the years, and they all sound different. It doesn't matter. You could be using the same neck wood, the same fretboard. You could be doing the same bracing on the same, and they all sound different. Some more so than others, but and that's kind of a wonderful thing. I think that's because you never quite know what you get, especially with piezo pickups. You know, with an electric guitar pickup, that's a different story. I think as soon as you put an electric guitar pickup on it, it's almost, in my opinion, it almost becomes more about the pickup than the guitar itself. That's why I'm a big fan of piezos. I'm a bit of a sucker for them. I do.
Yeah,
like them.
I love those because they challenge the instrument. Because piezo discs, the thing about those is they, you know, you can tap the box, you can tap the neck, and everything rings. Everything, you know, does that. And then when it comes for pickups for me, this one right here, this one's known as Legs.
That's
this
beautiful.
Is an actual washboard from the 20s.
Yes.
And then that is a C.B.Gitty. That's the Wicked Bucker.
Yeah.
And then my saddle right here is actually a 5.56 NATO dummy round from my great-grandfather was in World War II.
Oh, wow.
And that was shot from one of the M16s at his funeral, and I've kept that for almost 20 years now. And when I built this thing, I was like, well, you know, let me get this out of its hiding spot because it's just sitting there.
Yeah.
And I basically took a spindle that you would use for, you know, a porch or, you know, building a table.
Yeah.
And, you know, took this washboard. Alex, I've been wanting to do a washboard guitar for, you know, 16, 17 years. I've been wanting to do one.
Yeah.
And Alex from Pennsylvania, I talk to him all the time. He's a really good kid. And he's like, hey, man, I've got two of these washboards here. I found them in my grandma's, his grandma was called Graham's. And they were tearing down her log cabin house. So It's been in the family since the 1800s. And
I remember that.
They tore it down. And so the basement, he found these two and was like, hey, man, I'm going to send these to you. And, you know, they did need a lot of scrubbing, a lot of work. I mean, what you're seeing here is actually a gun stock stain.
Yeah.
And then wood burn. I give my guitars names just like a muscle car.
Yeah.
You know, they gotta have their own identity. And this one's known as Legs. And right here you'll notice that is one of the lucky ladies that flew on the back of my race truck. There was two of them like this, and the other one's on one of my other builds. But I brought both of these down because these were like the last two guitars I did for the last year. And I love this thing. This thing is such an animal. It just has a great sound because the way I designed this thing is I cut a notch relief. You can hardly see it with that tailpiece on there.
I can see it. Yeah, I can see it. Yes.
But there's a back angle in here. But I cut the notch relief so this sits in, and then this bolts on. So that way when the strings went on, it's the strings for the neck, and then the actual washboard resonates different. So this thing just, it's a whole different animal. I don't have my amp out with me, but it's something entirely different. But I wanted to do something, Americana. And one of the biggest things that, helped build America and going across the plains and going out west is everybody in their wagon had a washboard. Everybody had one of these to, wash clothes. And this other one, the two I'm showing you are definitely the ones that are like not for sale unless if I can find more washboards. So to tie in with it, that was the second one I built. This one right here, that's a nice honey stain, so you can see it's a lot lighter.
Beautiful.
But this one I hand engraved. This one's called Graham's Washer. I told Alex the first one I'd build, I'd honor his grandma and I would name it Graham's. So if you're from the South or Midwest, it's not wash, it's washer.
Yeah,
you're gonna take your clothes out to the wash. So
what's the neck of that one made from?
So this one I decided to do a little different. And this does nothing. It's just there for cosmetic, but that is a door handle from an old Chevy Nova.
Looks like a whammy bar.
And then, I mean, you can actually flip it over on the string. I just have to loosen it, but that's pretty much my thought was like if I wanted to get crazy, then, but I actually used an axe handle.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
But this adornment right here, that is a replica of an 1886 dollar.
Ah.
So,
and that's a diddly bow, that one?
This one's a diddly bow, yeah. And then it's got a 12 gauge shotgun shell. And then it's got a spoon. This spoon is like from right at the 1900s.
Oh.
And drilled a hole. And I just made a simple diddly bow just to show like Americana. So, once again, everybody had axes to, build your homes out of. So axe handle, and then spoon to eat, your shotgun shell for hunting. And then, of course, you get later in the years, you got cars. So I just tried to do something a little different. My thing is like, I don't really do research into other guitars that people really build.
Yeah.
It's whatever comes in my brain. Whatever comes, it happens. I sometimes make announcements, like if I finally have the vision, I'll be like, hey guys, this is what I thought of, so this is what we're going with here.
Yeah.
Come here, buddy.
Who's there? Who have you got there? Oh.
This is Charger. He's a bobtail Manx, which means he doesn't have he's got a nub for a tail, and he's 16, so he's just old and senile, and he always wants to be a part of the action.
Oh, he's part of the family, mate. Don't worry about that. He's welcome.
Oh, yeah.
We've got I'm not even a cat person. I don't call myself a cat person, but we've got 4 cats in a small house, and just like they're part of the family. We've got a dog as well, and they're family. They're family. Lovely, beautiful. I thought it was a baby.
I'm a cat guy, man. You always see those like Catwoman things, and I always turn to look at my wife and I say, what about cat dads, man? There's got to be, instead of Catwoman, there can be cat guys too,
Well, that's what I've become. That's what I've become. Yeah, it's. I never liked cats, and then we got our first one, and then we ended up with another one, and then we ended up with a rescue cat, and then we ended up with the last cat that we got, which was another rescue cat. She'd been wild for 3 years. It took her, Mika, her name is. It took her 3 years for us simply just to be able to pat her, and now she's just a big ball of fluff, But they're lovely. It's just lovely having animals around, and it's a very, very cool thing. One of my cats, Sailor, a little black one, he's got a little white spot on the front quite often. If I'm just playing cigar box guitar in the bedroom, he'll come up and he actually will just sit next to me. And yeah, he tolerates my playing, which is really lovely. So
yeah, these guys, when I get the amp out and I get the amp going, they'll sit here and they'll tolerate it, and then I'm like, well, if you crank it up a little higher, they're like, I don't like that. But,
yeah.
Every once in a while they'll sit there and they'll critique me. They'll let me know, like, hey, that sounds horrible. You need to change something. But
I was like, yeah, Dad, you're on point today. That's good.
Yeah, wrong note.
Yeah, so getting back to Del Puckett, I think Del has a lot to answer for in relation to bringing people into the hobby, and I have noticed that he's doing a YouTube podcast now, which is fantastic. He interviewed Mike Snowden a couple of weeks ago, and Mike's lovely. Mike will talk to everybody. He's such a lovely fella. And then there was another. I haven't watched the latest one. I did catch it for a minute, but it was quite late at night. It was like I thought I'll catch up with it again. But yeah, his videos. Did watching his videos, did that give you any tips, or was that just an inspiration to kind of go down that avenue? Sounds like you've kind of just created your own style more so than watching, as you were saying, more so than watching other people. It's just you kind of went, okay, this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. So you've got the 2 washboard builds. I mean, do you do, if I can use the term, standard cigar box builds as well?
Yeah, I've got I got another 4, 5, 6, another one in the kitchen. I've got that one's gonna get finished, and then I've got another 6 upstairs that I put up for sale. I really don't. The only ones I like. I guess I would sell the ones I just showed you, but I'd literally look at somebody and be like, dude, you need to pay me $500 because at this point I'm so attached to these. I put so much personal thought. The other ones I built, I put personal thought into them, but I didn't do the same caliber. The ones I built, I want to see somebody just pick up and, be able to play some blues or be able to play country or rock, with the distortion pedal and just have some fun. But these tell a story of my life, of history of America. So I kind of feel like these 2 should stay with me. I get that's really how I feel.
I get it. If people wanted to get in contact, do you have a website or anything at all, or?
I actually don't have a website. Right now, I pretty much just use my Instagram, which is American Heritage Guitars. The same logo. I can send you a picture later on after we're off of here, but it's gonna be the logo you'll see this wonderful specimen.
Yes, I've got it up on Facebook at the moment. I can see it. And it's in front of, what have you got in front of, some pallets or something like that? And she's beautiful, actually, man.
That is my favorite spot. So I live 2 blocks from where the original roundhouse used to be from the 1800s to the 1950s. It's gone now. They tore it down. But the opposite direction, there's still some of the original rails that they use. And that spot is my favorite spot because there's a broken pallet and it's on one of the old flat rail cars.
Yep.
And so I take it to that flat rail car, and that's where I shoot every guitar I build, especially when it's nice, is used at that beat up. And I don't even know how old that pallet is, but I'd probably guesstimate, if I were able to do the wood, probably from the 40s or 1950s.
Yeah, it'd have to be. It'd have to be 80, 90 years old. Yeah, and it's outside, being weathered.
Flat rail car.
So let me. I'm very. One of the things something that I'm very, very curious about is, I suppose. I've been talking with, and by the way, Darren McDonald, who normally does the podcast with me. We've got 2 other gentlemen, Joe Alteen and Jesse who does the podcast with us every now and again. So apologies that I actually must admit I haven't spoken to Jesse or Joe about the interview with you. It kind of came together very quickly. But Darren, who would have liked very much to have spoken to you today, he's got some family duties or something that's going on with him. But I've been talking a lot with Darren because Darren builds. I'll give you an idea of what Darren does. Like, I do a lot of, I suppose what I do a lot of, like, traditional builds with cigar box guitars, like that. And then I also do a lot of kind of, they're almost like electric guitars. So that type of thing there, like different hardware, but they're all, they've all got the modern appointments, these ones. And these for some reason have become my bestseller. And as a business, I can't get away from building those types of things. But Darren builds things like this. Now this for example is completely plywood. Everything. Apart from the fretboard which is a Meranti, which is kind of like it's a little like mahogany. I think Meranti, it's actually an Indonesian timber. But you can see that, I don't know if you can see clearly, but it's all totally plywood. And Darren builds these most amazing and resonant guitars, and they're gorgeous. And I've been talking with him about, I've been trying to convince him to, because he's got a lot of guitars that he's built over the years. And I think he's starting to cop a bit of flack from the missus. She's kind of like, well, you're going to have to get rid of some of these guitars because they're literally filling up the house. They've kind of taken over a bit. So I'm trying to convince him to pick a few that he wants to kind of, he would be happy to kind of move on to make way for building other things. And I've been trying to convince him to actually create a website. And he's of the mind that he doesn't want to open up a website at the moment. He's kind of on the fence. I've got him on the fence now, whereas before it was very much no. Now he's pausing and he's considering. And I think now it's the wife is kind of pushing him over the edge a little bit. But he doesn't want to because he tends to worry about what other people think. Whereas when I build a guitar, I build it, I'm happy with it. I come from a guitar background. I'm a self-trained luthier, so I can build electric guitars. I don't build acoustics. That's a different type of creature. But yeah, I built and service electric guitars, things like that. So I know electric guitars. I've been around them. I'm 53. I've been around them since I was 16. So my first guitar with a Floyd Rose, the first thing I did when I got it was I pulled it apart. And then put it all back together again. It was a nightmare, but I did it. It was one of those things. So I've got a background in that. He doesn't. And, he, again, is self-taught and all that sort of stuff. And he's kind of one of those people, I'm worried about what other people think. So I don't want to put it out there in case there's a problem. And I get that. I totally get that. And, but I'm curious as to why you don't have a website. And I'm asking a lot of people this who don't have websites because I am curious about it.
I just, I'm still one of those, the old dogs where I think you would still hope for the word of mouth process. But of course we are in the day and age. If it wasn't for my wife and daughter, I would have to say that, I wouldn't even be, camera friendly. I wouldn't even be doing, any of this stuff, any of these social media experiments, really, because they're the ones who push me to, if you're going to do something and you're good at it, then use social media, use your camera, use YouTube, use all of these sites. So I guess I'm still kind of banking on like, hey, if you go over to Instagram or hey, you go over to Facebook and you see all my stuff on, C.B.Gitty's pages, I'm kind of hoping like people would do that. But then again, also websites, they do cost a little bit of money. So I think roughly like in the $200 to $300 range, unfortunately, to jump through those hurdles in order to do it, because it's not free here.
my issue with that is this: most of the people on C.B.Gitty are builders. Even on our group, even on the Facebook group, the majority of the people on the Facebook group are builders. I mean, we're sharing ideas and we're helping each other out and we're critiquing each other's work, and and we're doing we're doing the playoffs and things like that, where we might be playing a song and showing a guitar that we're doing. But we are doing that in an environment where I would have to say over 90% of the people involved in that process are already builders. They're not players. They're not and when we advertise using our social media within our circle, we're kind of advertising to other builders. So we're minimizing our potential customer audience. And the first things first, I apologise for this conversation in light of those two beautiful guitars that you showed me, because in a way, they're two different ends of the spectrum. Darren McDonald, for example, builds because he loves building. He loves building. He doesn't like the challenge of when things go wrong. Quite often he'll call me up and he's crossing, right, I'm never doing it again. I'm never going to build another guitar. This is the last one because it's just driving me crazy. And then it's all finished and done, and he's all proud of himself and he's happy, and he'll pick out things that he doesn't like, but he'll sit there and every single thing he builds is unique and individual and special. And I own 6 of his guitars. We don't buy anything off each other. We gift each other guitars and things like that all the time. And they're probably some of my most special, possessions, physical possessions that I have. And so I don't mean to lessen what you're doing at all. And this is in relation to yourself or to other people who are listening, who are building, because those two guitars, as you said, for $500, I still think that's probably too cheap in relation to the effort, the work, the ideology, the thought, the feelings behind those instruments. They're two different things. It's two different things.
It's I've noticed like the not CBG guitar market, but like guitars in general. I remember going into music stores and like buying a Fender Telecaster or a Fender Fat Strat, and putting down like $150, $175. Nowadays, in order to get like a real good one, you gotta like put down like $1,500 plus.
Yeah.
More dollars. And I think that's I think it's overkill.
Yeah.
But, once again, that's why I don't, prefer to build a Fender or prefer to build a Gibson or prefer to build, that's why I prefer to build these, because, I've built, I've got a jazz bass upstairs I built with a P-bass neck, just as a, it's kind of an experiment.
Yeah.
Which totally works because it has a back angle and Fenders aren't supposed to have one.
Yeah.
But I feel like not trying to really like undersell myself, but I feel like if I put it up too high, that would scare people away from wanting to buy a piece of my heart, buy a piece of my blood and sweat. You're buying my blood and sweat on something that's got stain over it. I feel like it would deter somebody, but like you said, it's a lot of these I do take a lot of time. They take a lot of thought. And I have OCD, so that means I've got to measure everything 20,000 times.
Yeah.
That means that I've got to use when I set up my strings and my height, I've got to use my Fritz ruler.
Yeah.
Constantly. Crowning my frets, my fret file, just everything. I kind of feel like that's my because when you build guitars, like if you're a builder and a player, I think that's what. I don't want people to take offense to this in the wrong way, but what I'm trying to say, I'm horrible at words, but I feel like if you're a builder and a player, there's a different appreciation.
No, I agree.
But I feel like if you're just a player, I don't think you're gonna get the full concept of like what it takes to build a guitar, what it takes to set up a guitar, what it takes to get your intonation perfect. If you're gonna be using one of those, hardtail, like an actual like telly style, like you use.
Yeah, the bridges.
You have to set the height just perfect. You have to set the string tension just perfect. There's just so much involved building a 3-string guitar, or even a diddly bow. Building one the right way that sounds good. Like holding this one up, most people would look at it in pictures when I built this last year and go, oh, well, that didn't take a lot of work. And it's like, yeah, actually, it took more work than you thought.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That one, like, so, I mean, for me, sometimes some of my, guitars can take a month. Sometimes they can take a month and a half. It just depends on, like, how much I put into it. So I feel like there's certain people who can appreciate it if you're a builder and a player. But I feel like if you're someone who's just a player, I feel like you're not gonna, be on the outside looking in the right way.
Yeah, I think when you're a player, as in just someone who likes playing the instruments, is interested in the instruments, but not necessarily, not interested in building them. I just don't think that it's when they're looking at an instrument as a client. They're not going to see the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into a particular instrument, of how hard it might have been to have cut that fretboard, to get the right thickness on the fretboard, to, the hours and hours that goes into a particular build. That's not necessarily something that they're going to care about. But then again, I'm not going to, paint everybody with the same brush. It's a case of saying there is a customer. Like when you showed me the 3-string, that beautiful 3-string that you've done, I can't see you ever selling that. I'm just looking at it and I'm just thinking of it, and I'm sitting there going, he's never selling that. It'll never get sold. It's just one of those things. And I think if you did sell it, it would always be the one that got away. And for me, I have a one that got away. I've got when I had the shop up at Katoomba here in the Blue Mountains, I sold so many guitars. I sold so many guitars up there in the 4 years that we had the shop open, and the one that got away for me, there's all these wonderful Japanese guitars that I'd slaved over and bought and built and sold, and now I'm sitting there going, I see guitars online thinking, oh man, I missed that guitar. I just wish I had that one back. There's a couple there that I sold that I kind of went, I would really like to be able to get them back. And one of them actually was a Daddy Mojo C.B.G. And it was one of my collection, and I just remember having a tough week. It was during COVID, and I had a tough week, and it was actually behind the counter, and a guy really liked it, and I sold it. And as soon as I sold it, I regretted it. It was just one of those things, any of my guitars, it's one of those funny things. I suppose the reason I've got so many of Darren's guitars is because I can't sell them. Because they're not mine, they're kind of on loan in a way from Darren. It's something. That's the way I feel about it. It's like I'm not going to sell something that someone's given me. It's just, in my opinion, the wrong thing to do. And I also got a kit just recently from Ben Baker at C.B.Gitty, because I wanted to try and promote the kit for him. I said, hey, look, why don't you send me a kit? And he sent it to me, and I love the thing. And I've just last night put up a video on YouTube of I put on a Victory pickup by Wade Costenbader. He does these handmade gold foils, and it just sounds ace. It just sounds brilliant. But yeah, it's just one of those things that there's certain things you'll never sell, you'll just never get rid of, whereas my own guitars, every time I build one, that's a keeper, I'll keep it, I end up selling it, because it's I don't know.
I mean, it's very rare. I mean, I've got I put up a photo of like I just put like putting it together. I haven't been able to start it yet because I live in an apartment here, so I don't want to like stain anything inside or plus I've got the fur balls, so I'm kind of waiting for the weather, 40, 50 degrees where stain can be happy and my poly can be happy. But I'm actually going to get ready to the one I'm building. This is going to be a personal one. It's another one I've wanted to do growing up like here in the States, you've got dog dish hubcaps from the 1920s to the 1950s. And this is like an old Chevy Nova hubcap.
Oh, I've seen the video. It looks ace.
Yeah, so that one's going to have an actual P90, and I wanted something that, because once again, it's not like I can go out right now and go buy an original Good Luck. That's like $50,000 for an original Les Paul Gold Top.
Yes.
So our P90, or but even the new ones nowadays, they're like $5,000. So I thought to myself, like, well, if I built it this way, I got the sound, and I'm using Steve Harvey's signature strings. I'm using the heaviest of the heaviest set you can get.
Yeah, he's just done the new one. Was it a 44?
Yeah, and that's what I'm using.
It's a 44. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you could go heavier.
Right.
I remember. So that's funny, and you're tuning it to E?
Usually, it depends. It really, it's kind of weird saying this, but like, I let the guitar choose.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I let the guitar choose. I let my wood choose. Because really, believe it or not, contrary to popular belief, saddles really don't have anything to really do with your tone so much as like what your wood is. Are you using poly? Like I said, I try to take like actual my guitar knowledge from regular guitars, and I try to build. When I build these guitars, I try to build them. The way I think is, what if Fender never came out? What if Gibson never came out? What if all these guitar companies never came out and started gaining popularity in the 50s? In the Great Bandstand, that's why people started buying these guitars. But really, what most people don't realize is here in America, why people should be should take pride in these guitars is because, 1700s, 1800s, there were guys, out in the plantation building diddly bows off of where they lived, off their, side of their shack they were living on. And then eventually it went from the side of the shack they're living on or the floorboards to making it mobile.
Yep.
So that's when they started using cigar boxes. And then that's when most people don't realize a diddly bow means a one string. But everybody's like, oh, Bo Diddley. Well, Bo Diddley's actual real name is Bo Jackson.
Yeah.
He just derived his name because the diddly bow is what he started on.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of great musicians cut their teeth on a diddly bow or making a 2-string shugger or a 3-string or a 4-string, guitar. Every single great you can think of who started out in blues to bluegrass to country started on a cigar box guitar. But the thing is you have to go back to the days of the Civil War. Guys were making violins out of cigar, or not technically they didn't call them cigar, but I can't remember the name of the cigars they used to smoke. They're not even around anymore. But they started making violins. They started making fiddles. They started, so I mean, it's evolved in this thing, but I always tell people when people ask me, I always say, if it wasn't for all the greats of the blues scene, you wouldn't have your rock, you wouldn't have country, you wouldn't have all the music without these guys and without these instruments. But the problem is once the great bandstand came along in the 1950s on TV, the first guitar that was ever seen was a 1952 Fender.
Yeah.
Which back then they were called no-casters, before they actually started calling them tellies, or a broadcaster, no-caster. They were very wide guitars. And that's actually what my first guitar was.
Wow. Yeah.
My grandma, my grandpa, God rest his soul, he's been gone 22 years this year. I was a kid. They went to some pawn shop, I think, in Memphis. And they found that it was a 1953 butterscotch blonde black pickguard. And coincidentally, that guitar in my earlier years was destroyed by some family members of mine. They got drunk and decided to try to play Rockstar and destroyed it.
Oh.
So a year ago, my birthday's at the end of March, and a year ago, my mom and my grandma, they bought the new Player Series Telecaster. So, it's got the different bridge on it and such. It's not the exact clone copy, because the clone copies all had copper or brass barrel saddles.
Yeah.
This one's just got the new age.
And it's all intonated, and it's all got yeah.
Which is okay, but it's still a butterscotch blonde, black pickguard, telly. So they thought that they would surprise me to, reconnect me with a long lost friend, and that was like the best birthday present ever.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Well, guitars are special. They certainly are, and you certainly build some absolutely beautiful instruments, mate. And I wish you luck, and I hope everything's going well. You are building something like, I think it was 6 guitars a year. Is that what I read? I read that on.
Well, actually, I miscounted. Actually, last year I made 7. I forgot about the one that's here on my chair that's halfway finished.
Oh, okay.
So actually, I built 7 instead of 6 last year. Year before was 4. So I'm kind of hoping to, amp up the game this year and maybe do 1 or 2 more than I did the year before.
Do you also have a YouTube channel?
Yes, which is also American Heritage Guitars. It's my same logo of wonderful Legs, because Legs is just, that thing just, you can see it in pictures all day long, and I take clear pictures, but I don't think it does it justice unless if it's like, hey man, do you want to hold this? Do you just want to strum this real fast? Because I would love to build more washboards if that's something that somebody would be interested in. But
that could be your niche. I think that was just because I was thinking about that. I think that could be a niche thing for you. Being in America, you've got more access to historical artifacts like that. Even things, going back when it maybe not talking about destroying something from the 1800s or 1700s. I don't know, but things from the 1940s. I've got this, which I'm thinking about doing something with, and this is built using. I think this is actually Oregon, which is a type of pine, but that corrugated metal. This is very, very difficult to find nowadays. That hard edge, and I was talking many years ago to Pete Vivas. Pete Vivas has a company where he's been building cigar box guitars and electric guitars for years and years. What's he called his business? It's I'll have to remember it anyway. Pete Vivas. Check him out on YouTube. He's on Facebook. He's there. But I remember him frantically looking for pool edging. You know, for the above ground pools. Because at that point in time, that was something that was very, very difficult to find, this type of corrugation. Sorry, guys. People who are listening, this is not a video thing, I know, but I'm holding up a fairly inexpensive washboard that I found at Vinnie's, actually, here in Australia. And just looking at it, it's a complicated build. I'm looking at doing something with this, and it will actually be quite a complicated little build, this particular one. But I think you've got a niche there. I think holding those two up that you showed me, they're beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And I just think that could be a thing. You know, I'm just looking at that going, I can imagine selling those.
You can go to, in this small town I live in here in Clinton, Illinois, there's a couple of antique stores. There we go. And the problem is, though, is like, if you can find ones from, their 1800s, 1900s, 1910 to 1930s, people are asking like 100 to 200, 300 bucks, but the problem is, it's like, oh, well, this is going to hang on a wall. Not for me.
No.
This is going to be fully functioning piece of folk art, because I feel like if I was able to, to be able to go to some festival or something, I like to consider myself I joke around with people, because if people don't know me, you're sitting here, we're looking at each other, and I got my C.B.Gitty hat on here, and typically I've got my cowboy hat on. I look like I stepped off the plains from the 1800s, typically. So
you're the Wild Bill Hiccup Mo and goatee happening.
So but that's just, to me, it's trying to keep like the old days alive, and to me, I'm very proud of my second great cousins are none other than the James Gang themselves.
Oh wow.
So and I understand why they did what they did, and so I take heritage very seriously. Well, that's one of the reasons why my name is American Heritage Guitars, because it's, about American heritage. And I actually have another side project I do. It's called American Heritage and Rails.
Yeah.
So it's talking about American heritage, from, cutting down trees to making log cabins, to talking about the old railroad stuff. It's trying to teach people about, the days forgotten, bygone era days. Even about carbureted engines, things like that aren't thought of now. So I have my hand in a lot of stuff I'm trying to do different. I kind of feel like, I've said this to somebody before, like with building some of these guitars and everything I'm trying to do, like I want to leave a perfect love letter behind for my kids, for my grandkids to look back on, since we have social media now. I want it to be something that's a learning curve, that's a stepping stone, not just for my kids and my grandkids, but for other people. I want other people to, enjoy watching what I do as much as I like doing it. And sometimes I point my camera down here. I get my little ring light. I get all that stuff set up, and I just point and shoot raw and in the moment, because I don't have a computer. I typically just use my phone. So I can't really edit stuff. So all of my stuff is very raw, in the moment, unedited. We kind of just, it's kind of, somebody's, you're making a movie and somebody's like, okay, action, and go. And you're like, okay, take, okay, fine. Don't mess up. So
I think that's a wonderful thing. It really is. I think you've got there's certainly a niche, and I can see that. There's definitely a story that you're telling, and I think it comes across really, really well. I'm not sponsored by them at all. There's no sponsorship, but I am very interested in helping people tell their stories. It's one of the reasons people often ask me and say, why do you do a podcast about other cigar box guitar builders when you have your own company? It's because I love cigar box guitars, and I really enjoy helping and talking to people about what they love doing, and obviously you've got a great love of doing this. Have a look at Shopify as a web provider. Shopify have a $7 a month beginner package, and it's $7 ongoing. It's a limited site. It basically allows you to put product up. You can have a whole range of photos, and you can have a video set up within that. It's not fancy. I've got a Squarespace account, and that is that's upwards of nearly $400 a year. It cost me. Actually over. It's 44 Aussie a month times that, so 440.
Okay.
So it's $520 odd dollars a year, but that allows me all the bells and whistles, and I can do all sorts of things with that, and most of the time it pays itself. But it's definitely worthwhile having a look at Shopify, because for $7 a month, all you got to do is basically you pay for a domain. I'm happy to help with anything. If you got any questions, just DM me a message, anything at all.
Yeah,
That's what I'm trying to get Darren to do for Darren as well, because it is a really great way of putting your product out there for a very small outlay. But man, you got a lot of eggs in that basket, and I can see. I can see. I don't think it's just about the cigar box guitars. I can see your American heritage guitars, but I would love to see some of the cars that you've worked on. And I think it's a really wonderful niche you've got, the American heritage moniker, that tag, because it can be all encompassing, even washboard. But I'd love to see a video of you going down to some of these stores and showing us the different types of washboards and the different sounds and how even
and that's kind of that, and that's why my American Heritage Guitars is what it is. But that's why I also created American Heritage and Rails, my other YouTube channel, is for stuff like that, because I kind of feel like. I kind of feel like all of this is a lost art.
Yeah.
So, but I also feel like what a lot of us are into, and I say folk art using quotations, because a lot of people, when you run into people you don't know, I get that a lot here in town. During the summer, I load up my gig bag when I build one of these guitars to go to the locations to get the perfect shots for these. And people all the time like, what's a cigar box guitar? And I pull one of these out and they're like, I don't get it. Yeah. And I'm like, folk art. And they're like, okay, I get it now. And you're like, oh boy. And so
it's an alien concept. I think for a lot of people it's an alien concept. And as the generations... As we're moving forward in generations, there's the percentage of people who have an interest in folk art and even in history. It seems to be diminishing. And I'm not sure what that is. Like I've got 3 kids, and all 3 of them are just, their eyes are wide open and seeing the world. I'm very lucky, but I know there's a lot of other kids out there who are just so focused on the social media and the living inside the square. There's very little. It worries me a little bit in relation to what you're interested in and the history of things. I think it's important for us to, as builders and as players, to introduce more people. I think that's wonderful that you've got these. I'm definitely going to be checking out both of those YouTube channels. I haven't seen them.
it's really trying to just open. It's trying to open people's hearts. It's trying to open people's minds. It's trying to expand your horizon. There's a saying I always use, and that's some people can't see the forest through the trees. And what that means to me is, so you're standing in a forest, right? And a wrong kind of person will just look at that and be like, so I'm stuck in a forest. But the right kind of person who stands out in the middle of the forest, who's lost on purpose, sees the beauty all around you a full 360. And I've always been one of those people that have seen it that way, who's always thought with a glass half full when I've got a glass half full. I just kind of feel, I don't know, growing up my whole entire life, I've loved nothing but to, be out in the wilderness. I always loved, having an axe in my hand and being Paul Bunyan and Tall Paul and just, some of the, like living it for yourself, kind of just, it doesn't matter. I guess another thing too is, I guess it doesn't matter how old you get. Like, it's always choose to be a kid at heart, no matter how old you get or how old your body gets and feels on you. It's just about the wonders of the world. And I kind of feel like these instruments, like I said, I'm coming from a player and a builder standpoint. So sometimes when I think of these, I go, well, okay, so let's use pine, let's use ash or alder, let's use, poly, because it's going to help make this sound, and these strings will do this, and, my 15-degree back angle will do this, and there's so many different things running through my head that, like, I guess for other people who want to be builders out there listening to this now or listening to it later on, what I want you to take from this is, question everything, learn, because believe me, it doesn't, you could be like a person who, jack of all trades, master of none. So you can have your hand in your pocket on so many different things in life, but you'll never master just one of them, because I kind of feel like you need to expand your horizons in life. So I feel like doing these instruments and then going back to a regular guitar or going to a violin, then so like if you keep bouncing around, I believe it opens up your mind. It challenges you to see these things different. It challenges you to build them different. Like I said, so this one that I'm going to be building with the P90, I can't go out and buy one of those guitars that I want. So I know that I can make the sound of a Gibson guitar with this P90.
Yeah.
Because it's a P90. It's a P90. It's a Gibson P90. It's supposed to resemble the ones from 1955. So that very scratchy, throaty, cut out kind of feel. But we're just using a hubcap.
Yeah.
And building around it. So I kind of feel like, and another one I want to do this summer, for example, too, talking about expanding your mind, and my love of automotive, is I've got an air cleaner that I used on my race truck that I'm not going to use anymore. And it's a company called Edelbrock. They're the best company in the land when it comes to carburetors, and for your air cleaners for your carburetors. I'm going to take that air cleaner. It's a very nice chrome air cleaner. I want to make a guitar out of it. I want to do another, because why not? I hear the tone in my head.
Yeah.
And I see it. And then it's like, okay, well, I can hear it in my head. I can see it in my head. It's not built yet. So how can we get there? So I start reverting back to a regular guitar, but it's like, okay, well, we're not building a 6-string here. We're going to be building a 3-string. Because I don't know. Some people like 4 strings. Some people like 3 strings. I prefer 3 and 4 strings because I feel that it's similar to a 6-string. I want to figure out how to build a 6-string. I've seen people do it, but I think therein lies the problem for me is I don't like to do something other people have done.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, guys, I mean, it's just, sit around and stare at something, like grab a hubcap. Like, believe me, it'll come to you. It'll pop in your head pretty fast. Believe me, folks. And that's why, like, I created these washboards. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to. If I didn't tell the story behind these, I bet most people would probably see it without me telling the story.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah, there's a story within them. Mate, I'll have to leave it there. Listen, thank you so much for joining me today and joining us today. It's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. It's inspiring to see the builds that you've been doing and the care and attention that goes into it. And it does prove that there's a lot of cigar box guitar building happening out there in the world, and everyone seems to be kind of approaching things mostly from their own point of view. And I think that's one thing that's very special about building folk instruments and building instruments such as these and the handmade instrument movement, is that a lot of us take inspiration from our friends, and but we're still building for ourselves in a way. It's and I think that I think that's very, very important. I think it's really important to do that. It's very easy to get caught up in the monetary aspect of having a cigar box guitar build business, or especially when it does become part of your monthly income. And, part of the household income, it is important because you do want to sell and you do want to put your best foot forward. But I think that can't come at the expense of exploration and experimentation and creativity. So thank you. It's been inspiring having a chat with you today. And I'm definitely going to check out the 2 YouTube channels. So one is American Heritage Guitars, and the other one is American Heritage and Rails.
Yes.
And I'm definitely going to check out...
The American Heritage and Rails will say my name first before it says American Heritage. So it'll say Brayden American Heritage Rails.
Fantastic. All right, we'll check that out as well, mate. I'm really excited about looking into that. If you have any questions about websites, mate, don't hesitate to give me a buzz, send me a line, anything like that. No pressure. It's just I'm not sponsored by any of the web places. I just like to try and help people put their story across.
Oh, absolutely. No, I appreciate it.
No drama.
I appreciate you asking me to want to be a part of this, and it's been fun. You're an amazing builder yourself, and that's why I've been watching your stuff this past couple of years, and when you reached out, I'm like, yeah, it's a true pleasure. I'm ready to do this, and you keep doing you and keep building amazing guitars yourself.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, it's something I love to do. Every now and again, when I say to myself, I'm going to have a break, I find myself the next day I'm back in the workshop and doing it again. So you can't escape it. Do me a favour though. Have a think about someone who you think. We're going to try and do this with the interviews going forwards, is like a pay it forward thing. So just during the week, if you have a think about someone that you think would like to be interviewed and like to tell their story on the group and on the podcast, send me a line just so I can get in contact with them, and we'll see if we can do a kind of a pay it forward thing, so we get things happening and get you guys talking about maybe telling your story on the podcast. I appreciate you spending time with us today, mate. Thank you so much. Any last quick thoughts for the listeners?
No, guys, just, always be yourselves, always have faith in yourself, always trust yourself, and just explore, love life, love the people that you love, but just love doing this. I think that wraps it up pretty well.
Awesome, mate. All right. Thank you. Appreciate your time, mate. Thank you so much. And I will...
Thank you, Adam. You have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. See you. Well, that was Brayden Finchum from Brayden 66 Salvage. Again, you can contact Brayden through Facebook, through the group, of course, and also through his YouTube channels, American Heritage Guitars and American Heritage and Rails. I'll certainly be checking those out myself. All right, guys, thank you for listening. It's been wonderful having a chat with you. Remember, please, if you are going to be building something and you'd like to use some awesome quality parts, don't hesitate to use C.B.Gitty. You can find the links down in the information for the episode. And thanks. We will talk to you next time. Bye.